Well, a wider war isn't in anyone's interest, including Israel's. Hezbollah has 150,000 ballistic missiles, not ballistic missiles, excuse me, 150,000 missiles, including ballistic missiles, that can strike major Israeli cities. So the threat from Hezbollah is significantly greater than the threat from Hamas, and the casualties would be much higher. If you remember, Israel fought a war against Hezbollah in 2006, and it did not go well for Israel, although they did end up victorious in the end, or as victorious as they could be. So it's definitely not in Israel's interests. It's not clear that they would necessarily achieve their objectives. It's also not in Hezbollah's interest to have a wider war, which could potentially put some restraint on any retaliation that they might have.
Well, you mentioned the ballistic missiles here, and that's quite a bit all on its own, Jennifer. How do you contrast Hezbollah as a fighting force and the type of strategy that the IDF would have to employ to be very different than going after Hamas in Gaza?
Absolutely, it would be. I mean, the first real challenge, I think, would be coming from the air. Because they have such a large missile arsenal as well as these ballistic missiles, they can saturate Israeli air defense, and that will allow them to get some missiles through. So that's the first real challenge. The second is that Hezbollah is a much bigger group, a much better armed group, just in terms of other types of weapons that they have on the ground. So any type of ground incursion would also be much more difficult. And you have to believe that the Hezbollah fighters have built fortifications and booby traps and other types of challenges that Israeli soldiers that would face were they to launch a larger ground invasion. So I think what's more likely is that you might see smaller raids. I think the main goal of what we've seen in Israel and Lebanon over the past couple of days has been to really put pressure on Hezbollah and to show not necessarily that they're planning a large ground invasion, but that this will be the focus of Israel's political and military pressure to try to get some sort of buffer and force the issue to be able to move the Israelis back into their homes in the north.
Well, of course, Hezbollah and Hezbollah's chief in a news conference today essentially said that Israel won't be able to do that until the war in Gaza ends, that the attacks on Israel will not stop until the war in Gaza stops. Jennifer, are we any closer to that actually becoming reality? What does this do to the conversations around a ceasefire?
I mean, I think honestly it makes it less likely. Because I'm just really not sure, and I think many other analysts share this view, that it's just not clear what Hamas gains from a ceasefire at this point. Most of the infrastructure in Gaza has now been destroyed. It's not clear that Hamas is suffering any more major costs. They have survived, and they probably will survive. So there's no real incentive for them at this point to have any sort of ceasefire. I think the other challenge that Israel faces in moving citizens back into the north is just this idea of safety. If you're an Israeli citizen, even if the war in Gaza ends, do you feel safe going back until there's some sort of resolution to the challenge that it faced from Hezbollah? And I think that's why you see the Israeli government really pushing this military solution or military action, is that there has to be some event or change on the northern front that gives Israelis the confidence that they'll be safe if they were to return home.